Hello and welcome to your primetime news here on TV1 with Newsfirst. I'm Deshan going earlier for the Newsfirst team. As always, we've got the very latest goings on here at home and around the world. But as always, let's first have a look at your headlines.
Aragalaya activists relinquish control of occupied premises. Ranil must go. GGG protests to continue. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa lands in Singapore. Opposition parties meet. Request for a party leaders meeting tomorrow. Curfew in Colombo until 5 a.m. tomorrow.
Main sponsor.
Earn a highest interest rate of 21% for 4 months fixed deposits. LB Daisuru.
And now in your lead story and some breaking news that just arrived a short while ago, the Office of the Parliament Speaker says that it had received a letter of resignation from President Gotabaya Rajapaksa via the Sri Lankan High Commission in Singapore. The Office of the Speaker of Parliament said after authenticating the letter once again and completing all necessary legal matters, an official announcement will be made on 15th of July, that is Friday, tomorrow. These details were revealed in a statement issued bearing the signature of the Speaker's media secretary. Now, AFP News reported that President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has landed in Singapore.
Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa left for Singapore from the Velena International Airport in the Maldives this morning aboard a Saudi Airlines plane. He reached the Changi Airport in Singapore this evening. The officer of the spokesperson for the Singapore Foreign Ministry said that Gotabaya Rajapaksa was allowed entry into Singapore on a private visit. The statement said that Gotabaya Rajapaksa has not asked for asylum and neither has he been granted any asylum. The statement added that Singapore generally does not grant requests for asylum.
Now, as the crisis in Sri Lanka continues to worsen, the British Parliament yesterday held an urgent debate on the state of Sri Lanka.
And can I agree with her that this horrible, appalling situation for the people of Sri Lanka has been brought about by the corruption of the Rajapaksa government? Can it start with an economic package with the IMF and others so we can give immediate support? But can that be followed and included with a political package which includes an international arrest warrant for President Rajapaksa and his cronies?
Political and economic challenges should be resolved through an inclusive and cross-party process. Of course, we do work with our international partners on this matter, and I think I've already set out, the economic support that we've provided through multilateral institutions such as the IMF, World Bank, and also organisations like the UN.
Can she reassure the House too that if the people of Sri Lanka want him back to face trial for corruption and poor governance, that Britain will play its role in helping get him back from the Maldives?
I'm really kind of disappointed, actually, that of the nature of that question. We are seeing a situation on the ground where I am stood here at the dispatch box because what we want is a peaceful, democratic and inclusive approach. We've been calling for restraint and a refrain from violence. So I'm just not going to accept that question.
Whether the government will now redouble efforts to bring to justice those implicated in human rights abuses in Sri Lanka. We have this unique opportunity not only to support an ally, a friend and a member of the Commonwealth during their time of need, but help to bring peace, justice and a more sustainable and brighter future to the Sri Lankan people.
The Minister for South Asia has been working very closely on this matter and does raise human rights issues.
There is a large diaspora of Sri Lankan people who live here who are desperately worried about their family back in Sri Lanka. And the Minister has made no mention of the Prime Minister's involvement. So could she, at the end of this urgent question, ask the Prime Minister to pick up the phone to the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka and ask him to stop firing at innocent people?
I would like to reassure the House the Minister for South Asia is in regular dialogue with the High Commission and the team on the ground in order to be able to kind of keep an up-to-date view on the situation there. After all, it is incredibly fluid and fast-moving.
Now, former Foreign Minister of the Maldives said that she will question the decision of the Maldivian government to bring Gotabaya Rajapaksa to the country.
The Maldives National Party's parliamentary group have decided to submit a motion to our parliament, the Majlis, to clarify how the government of Maldives has acted in bringing President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to Maldives. I think this is a very good action. We all know that Sri Lanka is in a crisis economically as well as politically. In such a situation, I believe Maldives should also respect the wishes of the Sri Lankan people, and they have been working to change this government, and I think this is something that we need to be sensitive about. I believe leaders should be held accountable for their actions in any country, and hence the Sri Lankan people have been expressing their wishes in this regard.
Now, KFIS activists who gathered at the High Commission of Sri Lanka in India in solidarity with the Sri Lankan people have been forcefully detained by the Delhi police. Krantikari Yuva Sanganathan is a student organization in India. Now, groups involved in the people's struggle or the Aragalaya moved out from the President's office and temple trees that they occupied on Saturday, the 9th of July. Although the evacuation from the Prime Minister's office went on without an incident, a heated situation was witnessed at the President's office this evening.
A tense situation was experienced this evening when police officers suddenly arrived at the Gota Gogama protest site next to the President's office in Colombo. Activists opposed the move and stressed that they wish to remain at the President's office, and this led to a heated exchange. During this argumentative situation, a large number of police special task force and army officers were also seen entering the presidential office premises from the back gate. Rajapaksa has attacked the Aragalaya physically. Ranil is going to disperse the Aragalaya through cunning tactics. He is formulating a master plan to pit the people and the Aragalaya against the army. Master plan, nigga. Activists from the people's protest moved out of the President's house this evening after cleaning the premises.
රටේ විතරක් නෙමෙයි ගෝටට දැන් ලොවෙත් ඉන්න බැරි වෙලා ලොවෙත් ඉන්න බැරි වෙලා
Gotabaya cannot move anywhere in the world, let alone live in Sri Lanka. We are moving out temporarily. We will continue this struggle at Golface until we achieve victory. The President's office will remain under our control as a message to the government.
ජනාධිපති ලේකම් කාර්යාලය ජනතාව සතු එලෙසම පවතිනවා කියන එක අපි සිග්නල් එකක් විදියට ආණ්ඩුවට දෙනවා.
Activists from the people's protest also left temple trees this afternoon. We are leaving temple trees, but our demands are still the same. The President and the Prime Minister must resign. Also, an all-party government and an interim government should be established within the country. This is how the group left the Prime Minister's office.
The decision to return the President's house and the Prime Minister's office back to the state was announced at a press conference held at the occupied Golface protest site.
In the last 2-3 days, people have been peacefully occupying government buildings and spaces, including the old parliament. And there has been several attempts to portray this peaceful occupation as violent. And standing from this protest site, I want to tell people who are not part of this struggle, people who are outside this struggle, the people who are the people of this struggle have never been violent. They've always been peaceful, and the occupation has always been peaceful. And these buildings are people's properties. They are not anyone's private properties. They are people's properties, and people have a right to occupy. Despite this peaceful occupation, today as people from the struggle, we have decided that we will withdraw from most of these properties except the old parliament and the golf space, because people have gathered in the old parliament to send a very clear message to not only the executive but also the legislature. We want you to do the job. We have come here, we have stood here for 97 days, we have asked Gotabaya Rajapaksa to resign, we have asked Ranil Wickremesinghe to resign, but for the last 3 days these politicians have acted as if this country is their private property. It is not their private property. They have put our country at risk. They have put our national security at risk, not the Aragalia people. These are people who came to power promising that they would respect and protect our sovereignty. And today, by leaving this country without any kind of plan, without providing a resignation, playing the fool with our people, they have put our country's sovereignty at risk. So today we stand here as an Aragalia state, and we state that we are peacefully withdrawing from most of these buildings except the old parliament and the golf face. We will continue to stay in these spaces. We will continue to protest until we reach the goals of our struggle. And we humbly and kindly urge those people in power to not use this opportunity to bring in the military, to threaten people, to show your military power on peaceful protesters, because we have always been peaceful. This struggle has always been peaceful and will always remain peaceful.
Now, the Sri Lanka Army said 2 T-56 assault rifles were snatched from Army soldiers by protesters who assaulted the troops that were positioned to control crowds at Polduwa Junction in Battaramulla. Police spokesperson SSP attorney at Lonihal Talduwa said 2 magazines with live rounds were also stolen after attacking and harassing the soldiers.
84 people who were injured during the protests opposite the Prime Minister's office and Polduwa Junction in Battaramulla were admitted to the Colombo National Hospital. The police spokesperson added that 6 police officers were among the injured. Army spokesperson Brigadier Nilantha Premaratna said that 16 soldiers were also injured during the protest held at the Polduwa Junction in Battaramulla. Last evening, a violent group tried to engage with the security forces near the parliament and went on to harass and attack the troops on duty using clubs, iron rods, stones, helmets, and snatched 2 T-56 weapons with ammunition rounds and caused injuries to army personnel, making 2 of them even unconscious, and they have now been admitted to the hospital. The 2 soldiers are in critical condition, and there is a possibility that the stolen weapons may be used in acts of violence. The public needs to be aware of this.
What happened at the Polduwa Junction yesterday?
A protest was held opposite the entrance road to Parliament at the Polduwa Junction, and it was attended by representatives of the JVP, including Sunil Handunetti, KD Lalkanta and Sunil Vatagala. According to the footage captured on our cameras, while this protest was ongoing, there was another protest taking place opposite the roadblocks placed along the Parliament entrance road. The numbers at the protest near the roadblocks leading to Parliament outnumbered those at the JVP protest, and the situation escalated to an altercation. In order to control the situation, security forces launched tear gas. However, as time passed, more crowds gathered at the location. People who gathered at the protest site had travelled there in lorries and other vehicles and later clashed with the armed forces on multiple occasions. the army had taken steps to beef up security in the area surrounding the Puldua junction by this morning.
Chief of Defence Staff General Shavendra Silva visited the Army Hospital today to inquire into the well-being of the 2 Sri Lanka Army soldiers who were injured following an ugly incident last night at the Puldua junction close to the Parliament.
The Sri Lanka Army personnel are now empowered to use force to protect lives and state property from any harm.
In a view of escalation of violent acts, protesters intent on harming the armed forces or public property are earnestly urged by the Sri Lanka Army to desist from all forms of violence immediately. The Sri Lanka Army said if they do not, they should be prepared to face consequences, as members of the armed forces are legitimately empowered to exercise their force if the situation deems necessary, as security to public property, key installations, vulnerable points and human lives does fall within the purview of their responsibility.
The Janatha Vimukthi Peramuna convened a press briefing to elaborate on what happened at the Puldua junction last night.
At recent protests, several unacceptable incidents had taken place. Multiple factions are involved in the people's struggle, and we saw things that the people reject. It was reported that a weapon belonging to a soldier was stolen during the protest at the Puldua junction. We do not approve of this unruly situation that took place. When weapons are stolen off servicemen, it gives the opportunity for the security forces to take action. We cannot approve heading into such a situation. We condemn it. We also appeal from all groups engaged in the protest to refrain from engaging in such acts. Fascist Ranil Wickremesinghe has no right to use this situation to import emergency law and deploy the forces. This situation cannot be controlled unless Ranil and Gota resigns. Where did Ranil Wickremesinghe take oaths as the acting president? There is no evidence to claim that the letter signed by Gotabaya was given to someone. The method of issuing a gazette is also questionable. There is a legal issue in imposing emergency law and deploying troops using such measures.
Now, curfew was imposed in the Colombo administrative district from noon today until 5 a.m. tomorrow. The Department of Government Information said the order was issued by the acting president in accordance with the powers assigned under the provisions of the Public Security Ordinance.
Due to the imposition of curfew in the Colombo district, Sri Lanka Railways announced that the trains coming to Colombo have been temporarily cancelled. The department said that only trains operating from Colombo will operate to their final destinations along their respective routes. In the meantime, the Sri Lanka Transport Board says that in view of the curfew imposed, bus operations may be limited only in the Colombo district. During the curfew period, the security of the city of Colombo had also been strengthened.
Now, the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office has advised against all but essential travel to Sri Lanka due to the impact of the current economic crisis. The office, however, said that the advice does not apply to airside transit through Sri Lanka's international airport. In a statement, it also advised the people to avoid political gatherings or protests and be wary of spontaneous large gatherings. Now, former Sri Lankan Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa and several other officials of the former administration have pledged to remain in Sri Lanka until tomorrow.
Former Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, former Minister of Finance Basil Rajapaksa and former Secretary of the Ministry of Finance Saratigala have pledged to the Supreme Court that they will not be travelling overseas until tomorrow. Former Central Bank Governor Ajit Nivard Cabral also pledged that he has no need to travel overseas. He added that he will seek the Supreme Court's approval if the need arises. The pledge was made by lawyers representing the former officials when a petition filed for an investigation against those who are responsible responsible for the current economic crisis was called up today. The Supreme Court also issued an order preventing former Central Bank Governor W.D. Lakshman from travelling abroad until tomorrow due to the absence of a lawyer representing the former CBSL governor, who was also named as a respondent in the petition. This order was made after considering a motion related to this petition before the 5-member bench of the Supreme Court, including Chief Justice Janatha Jayasuriya and Justices Bhuvanekalu Vihara, Priyantha Jayawardena, Vijit Malalgoda and L.T.B. Dehideniya. Chandra Jayaratne, the former president of the Sri Lanka Chamber of Commerce, had filed this petition requesting for an investigation to be ordered against those who are responsible for the current economic crisis.
Aspirations, dreams, broken hearts, sorrowful smiles.
තේනෝනේ මහත්තයා මේ බොන වතුර සේරම මඩ කොච්චර මේ කරත් මේවා බොන්න බෑ අපේ ළමයිට වකුගඩු අමාරු කේක ලෙඩ රෝග හැදෙනවනේ.
You have the power to preserve your happiness, building a future for tomorrow. Janatha eliminates darkness from your lives.
Janatha, for the people, by the people.
Main sponsor.
Earn a highest interest rate of 21% for 4 months fixed deposits. LB Daisuru. Earn a highest interest rate of 21% for 4 months fixed deposits. LB Daisuru.
For the first time in Sri Lanka, EVA unveiled an antibacterial layer to minimize microbial growth and control odour, helping you stay fresher throughout the day. EVA, leading with confidence.
Welcome back to your news. Now, opposition political party leaders said that a proposal by the party leaders for the post of Prime Minister will be announced tomorrow. Based on the agreement reached for an all-party government, Sri Lanka's acting president had asked the Speaker of Parliament to nominate a new Prime Minister.
Opposition political parties and independent MPs met under the auspices of opposition leader Sajith Premadasa for talks again. We requested the Speaker to call for a party leaders meeting. I believe that the meeting will be held at about 10 a.m. tomorrow. We are hoping to discuss this with other parties and propose a name tomorrow. When a new Prime Minister is appointed, the current Prime Minister will become the acting President. The Speaker can make the next step of appointing a new President within the next month. We were always supporting the idea of an all-party government. This is not a time for personal agendas. We must all work on maintaining calm in the country.
We will never accept Ranil Wickremesinghe, who came into power without the people's mandate and after losing the elections. The acting president is conspiring to become the president of this country. We will act against this.
The Speaker said that Parliament will not convene tomorrow and a party leaders meeting will be held at 10 a.m.
Now, parliamentarian Daisuru Jayasekara has directed a letter to the Chief Justice requesting him to initiate functions in accordance with the 37(2) article of the Constitution.
In a letter to the Chief Justice, MP Daisuru Jayasekara said it can be observed that the President has left the country and left it in a disarray without facilitating for an acting President. Daisuru Jayasekara points out that these actions of Gotabaya Rajapaksa show that he does not respect democracy and is a leader who has shirked in his responsibility in protecting the rights of the citizens of Sri Lanka. Daisuru Jayasekara points out that this conduct of Gotabaya Rajapaksa, especially in fleeing the country without resigning and appointing a successor, requires that he be considered as a president who has vacated his position. He has requested the Chief Justice to activate the provisions under the Article 37(2) of the Constitution. Daisuru Jayasekara also points out that before Gotabaya Rajapaksa fled the country, he had appointed Ranil Wickremesinghe as the acting president. He points out that considering the developments in the country during the past few days, it is clear that Ranil Wickremesinghe is not able to fulfill his duties in the capacity of acting president. Thereby, he points out to the Chief Justice that Ranil Wickremesinghe is not able to hold the position of acting president of Sri Lanka.
Now, representatives of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, including Daisuru Jayasekara, met with the Janatha Vimukthi Peramuna leader Anrakumara Disanayaka earlier today.
We believe that this parliament is no longer an institute that reflects the real mandate of the people. There is a clear difference between what people want and the mandate within the parliament. Therefore, there is a desperate need to go for an election soon. Today, we are able to discuss on the interim measures we can take to guide the country for this election. No, we are still discussing about this. In fact, we even have a meeting tomorrow morning about this. We expect to inform our final decision to the Speaker during the party leaders meeting at 10 a.m. tomorrow.
Now, Field Marshal Sarath Fonseca addressed reporters in Colombo today to stress on several matters.
I believe that a new force must step up to save our nation from this current crisis which we are facing. This is my personal opinion. All party representatives must join with this force, and the people outside this struggle must feel that this force is going in the right path. The president, who was elected by 6.9 million people, has fled the country, and the person who just obtained 25,000 votes is now sitting on the chair of the president. The world outside must be thinking that we are a nation full of lunatics. I don't know how our people will react to this. Party leaders are meeting in the parliament to establish an all-party government. All those parties only have 2 to 3 seats in the house. In the meantime, the Sri Lanka Peramuna is not ready to join the all-party government. Several minority parties in the parliament are now trying to form a government together. This will be just like Ranil coming into power. I will accept the majority say in the parliament, but our factions should also agree to it. I need to have a clear majority. I have already received several invitations to take up the premiership.
ඔබතුමා මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් මේ ඔබතුමාගේ නායකතුමාට කිව්වේ නැද්ද මේ මටත් ආරාධනා තියෙනවා
මම කතා කරන දේශපාලන කතා ඒක මගේ පුද්ගලික ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදී අයිතිවාසිකමක් ඒ ඔක්කොම දුවගෙන ගිහිල්ලා මම කාටවත් කියන්න ඕනේ නැහැ.
We'll be right back after this short commercial break.
පුරා ගලන මේ සතුට සුරක්ෂිත කරන්නේ Islam Insight. Islam ජීවයයි ජලයයි ජීවිතේ.
Welcome back to your news. Now, US Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Julie Chung, said that the US condemns all violence and calls for the rule of law to be upheld in Sri Lanka. In a tweet, she said the United States urges all parties to approach this juncture with a commitment to the betterment of the nation and to work quickly to implement solutions that will bring long-term economic and political stability. Now, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, has urged all Sri Lankan party leaders to embrace the spirit of compromise for a peaceful and democratic transition. In a tweet, he said, quote, "I continue to follow the situation in Sri Lanka very closely. It is important that the root causes of the conflict and protesters' grievances are addressed," unquote. The United Nations Human Rights Office has called on all sides to refrain from violence and ensure peaceful political transition. It added that a broad and inclusive process respecting rule of law is needed. The United Nations Human Rights Office said the leaders must call for respect of life and property, while security forces, including the military, must respect human rights and exercise restraint. Well, that's a wrap of your news for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to stay updated on these stories and more. You can join us on any of our social media. Just search News First. I've been Deshan Gonawala for the News First team. Thank you, take care, and God bless.
Kidney diseases have plagued the villages of Madukare for many years.
for 335 families that once relied on impure water, there's some hope. A water purification project by Janatha. Janatha, for the people, by the people.